This is from the movie Godfather, and it's in the movie The Godfather Part 2. It's like after 45 minutes, there's a Senate committee hearing. One of these characters whose name is Frankie Pentangeli, is going to testify before the Senate committee. And then there's this interesting conversation.
Mr. Pentangeli. Mr. Pentangeli. Were you a member of the Corleone family? Did you serve under Capo regime, Peter Clemenza, under Vito Corleone, also known as the Godfather?
I never knew no Godfather. I got my own family, Senator.
Okay, this is a sentence that guy says. I never knew no Godfather. But what he means is, I never knew any Godfather. In standard English, if you say I never knew no Godfather, it means I knew some Godfather, right? So he uses double negative, but he means single negative in standard English. But his answer is interpreted as negative, because you can see in the rest of the video. Here the senators speak standard English, but they interpret the response of Pentangeli as non-standard. So they don't, if they interpreted it in standard English, this wouldn't happen. But obviously they don't. So they assume that Pentangeli is not speaking standard English, because in standard English, two negatives would make a positive. So this brings us into an interesting discussion. So first, there's a general discussion in syntax, which is called Concord. So Concord is a relationship between words, between elements in a sentence. So what is Concord? It means if you use a particular word, it would require that another word in the sentence correspond to it in its form. For example, in English, if you use he and then you want to use walk, you have to say walks. So there's concord, or in some discussions called agreement, between the subject and the verb. The discussion of concord can be taken to the discussion of negatives. There's a kind of concord which is called negative concord. So negative concord refers to cases where an element expressing negation requires some other element in the sentence to be negative. For example, in Spanish, if you say no tengo ningún dinero, I have no money, so you use ningún, which means no, but you also say no tengo. So you don't say no tengo algún dinero, which would be the positive form. But the translation in English would be one negative. So standard English doesn't have negative concord. Some non-standard dialects do, like African American vernacular English, or the English that Pentangeli is using in this video. So he's not using standard English. So his English has negative concord. Negative concord is also known as double negative. Well, it's not the same as double negative. Okay, what is double negative? Double negative is when you use two negatives. But in non-standard English, double negative doesn't make a positive. A now non-standard syntactic construction containing two negatives and having a negative meaning. For example, when you say, I didn't hear nothing, it means I didn't hear anything. But in standard English, it would mean the opposite. It means if you say, I didn't hear nothing, I heard something. How is it that people are not confused in English? In English, we use both. Like in non-standard English, they use double negative concord. In standard English, they don't. But even if a person is speaking standard English with a person who's speaking non-standard English, there's no confusion because they don't take it the wrong way. And that's what's happening in the movie.
I ask you again, sir, here and now under oath, were you at any time a member of a crime organization headed by Michael Corleone?
I don't know nothing about that. Oh. I was in the olive oil business with his father, but that was a long time ago, that's all.
He says, I don't know nothing about that. But in standard English, you would say, I don't know anything about that. If you see double negative, you say, I don't know nothing about that. It means I know something about that. And then again, he uses double negative, but he means a single negative. So what is happening in his English, which is non-standard English, and in non-standard English, when you use double negative, you use it based on negative concord. And in negative concord, you use two negatives, but they don't cancel each other out. They just, they are emphatic. It is emphatic negative. They emphasize each other. So in prescriptive grammar, people would say, oh, you shouldn't use double negative. And then if you use double negative, that's not good language or good English. We know that that's not true. We know that some languages like French, even Italian, you see they have double negative here in these sentences. For example, in French, you have no, and personne means no one. In Italian, you have non nessuno. You could argue that Pentangeli, considering that he has Italian background and speaks Italian, he would be more prone to use double negative. You don't have to speak Italian in English to do that. So what is a double negative? There are two contexts where double negatives are used. Sometimes, even in standard English, you use double negative. For example, here, it is not an uncommon sight. So here, because this is standard English, it's not negative concord. It actually means to be two negatives, which kind of make a positive. So when you say it is a not uncommon sight, it somehow means it is a common sight. But in a way, we didn't say that because this implies some negativity as well. So for example, when you say, I shouldn't wonder if it didn't rain today, you could simply say, I expect it to rain today. You could have double negative in standard English, but for a different purpose. That's not what's happening in the movie. I don't take no money from no white folks. I don't have nothing to do with them if I can help it. So clouds came up, but no rain never falls when you want it. He never did no harm to no one. This is multiple negative, but again, negative concord. I have not done nothing. Let's take this sentence. If you want to take it in negative concord dialects, it would mean I have not done anything. But in standard English, it would mean I have done something. In negative concord dialects. So, okay, now back to the Godfather movie.
I never knew no Godfather. I don't know nothing about that. Oh.
So I think the amazing thing in the Godfather movie and in many real situations is that people who don't use negative concord can properly communicate with people who use negative concord. Although it's not very common, but if it becomes the case, even if in a formal setting like in the movie The Godfather, there's no misunderstanding.